Welcome. I call to order the policy session for September 13, 2023. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner Savas is on his way. The first session today is the Office of Economic Development Strategic Priorities. Laura Edmonds, Manager of Economic Development, and Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, will present. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Chair Smith, Commissioners, this is kind of an exciting time. I know you are very familiar with the work of the Office of Economic Development, and that work had been paused a little bit over the last couple of years. We had some key vacancies in that program, and we also had this little pandemic that we've been dealing with, and they've been doing good work through basically the business recovery centers and the direction from the board to assist small businesses. But now it's time to get back to the great work of doing economic vitality and health throughout the Clackamas County area. With that came the hiring of Laura Edmonds. It's been an entire 6 months, a great addition to our staff and the staff of Clackamas County, and her leading the work of the Office of Economic Development. And though she hasn't been here a long time, it's been a good time. She's been doing a lot of deep dives into basically finishing some survey work up, which she's going to share with you today about the feelings of some of the businesses in Clackamas County and how they feel about Clackamas County itself. And then secondly, share with you some key priorities and goals. And we're looking for your feedback on those key priorities and goals. That feedback will then help us advance development of essentially a work program for the Office of Economic Development. This is not the last time we're going to talk to you about this. It's simply the first time. And obviously there will be many more touch points coming forward as we discuss and develop this plan for future consideration. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura, and I'm going to be Laura's clicker person, so please don't
Thank you,
judge
Dan.
that.
We are not making any decision points today. We're just receiving input, commissioners, and giving feedback. Thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you. Greetings, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. Thanks for having me here. It's an honor. As Dan mentioned, we are going to be covering two items today, the business-friendly survey and then the results, and then the Office of Economic Development Strategic Key Priorities and Goals. So in your packet, you'll have a number of attachments. Attachment A is going to be the PowerPoint presentation slides themselves. Attachment B is the survey results. And the last attachment, C, is the actual key priorities and goals that we've defined thus far. So what I'd like to do, if possible, I'd like to get through the entire presentation, maybe 10 minutes max, I swear. And then you're going to have a lot of time at the end for Q&A and recommendations, if that's all right with you. So as Dan mentioned, I've got through my first 6 months. Still learning the ropes, but we've held a lot of meetings with internal teams, the county departments, our partners out in the community, the cities, and our businesses. And so we're taking every measure possible to be supportive of our entire region, countywide. And what we've done is we're taking all feedback into consideration to establish the goals that we're presenting to you today. We're eager to hear your thoughts and recommendations, and so what we're going to do is we're going to begin this with the survey results first. The feedback is very relevant to support our priorities and the goals as we've established them thus far. Please note, the order of the survey charts on the presentation don't necessarily match up with the survey results in the report you have, but we've identified page numbers at the beginning, bottom of each chart, so you can follow along if you wish. And the business-friendly survey performed by Southern Oregon University was then to support the performance goals as established by 2024, that 75% of the businesses working in Clackamas County will report a business-friendly environment that supports stability and growth. So the purpose of the survey was to determine a baseline percentage moving forward, okay? So the survey was distributed April through May of 2023. It was sent out twice through emails, flyers, partners, chambers of commerce. And we heard from 123 respondents, but only 92 completed the survey, which is actually not bad when you consider it was sent out countywide, but on average, you might get 10%, if that, respondents. But it's good feedback, and the positive feedback that we received, there's good positive feedback, but there's also some great recommendations on where we can improve. our deliverables. And that's what's wonderful, because that builds into these priorities and goals that we're establishing. Okay, next slide, please, Dan. So the business-friendly results basically tell us that at the beginning of the survey, we had a 56% satisfaction rate. But by the end of the survey, after the businesses reflected on the services that they received by the county departments, that satisfaction rate increased to 63%, which is great. And this is just the start, right? And then those dissatisfied went from 13% down to 11%. So we're happy with that. And so we're going to focus on both the satisfied and the, and those that aren't so satisfied. And they've provided us their feedback. Next slide, please. So this cluster information that you see here is not in your survey reports. This is just a talking point screen for myself, because it's data that has been captured from, it reflects industry data that has been captured from the Oregon Employment Department Q1 2023 data. That our partners at GPI have created some slides and stuff for us. This is one of the slides and another thing that we're working on with them. But in the meantime, what it tells us is that this data tells us that the Clackamas County employment numbers, we have about 170,000 jobs in the county right now, active jobs, and that these are the clusters that have the highest employment in the county. So the Office of Economic Development, our job is going to be to support all industries equally. But what we're using this data to glean from is to then set our goals and focus efforts on growing industries that pay self-sufficiency wages. The research and data that we've gathered nationally and state from sources indicate that the industries paying that are paying self-sufficiency wages are construction, manufacturing, science and tech, healthcare, wholesale, information technologies like your IT and software, and renewable energy. So the respondents in the survey, and you'll see some data on page 9 and 10 when you go, if you've not already read through this, that the respondents in the survey were made up primarily of 4 main industries: manufacturing at 21%, food service at 18%, science and tech at 12%, and construction at 10%. Of those businesses, the business responding, the size of organizations responding, 20% were small business, 1 to 4 employees, mid-sized 21%, 5 to 9, and 5% were the largest with over 100 employees. So it's great sector data, it's good industry data, because we also were able to establish what self-sufficiency wages look like for industries. Next slide, please. So the next slide tells us what services the respondents utilized for the county. And these were gathering information, advice, they came to us for permitting, health inspections, water service. And what was great was that some of the respondents overlapped between 2 and 3 different departments. And those were for development services, water environment services, and economic development. And a lot of that touched with the enterprise zone work that our team does. Next slide. So the strengths, as identified by the respondents, when asked if the county does a good job, they're pleased with communications, they're pleased with our knowledgeable staff, and that we have helpful and good leadership. Now, the other line item at the very bottom there, I want to describe what that means, is that additionally, respondents reflected on additional strengths that we hadn't even mentioned. They mentioned that we allow great connections to businesses, to partners, that we're supportive in the manufacturing industries, and that we have lower taxes than Multnomah County. Additional responses also provided us areas for improvement, like faster response times, lower fees, more grants to support businesses, deadlines, dealing with homeless crisis, and that many were pleased with the business recovery services that were provided during COVID. Next slide, please. So the general view overall of the county, based on additional questions asked, is that the interactions that they've had with the county and the views of living and working in the county, overall, they're pleased with access to freeways, ports, rail, and airports. Everybody is generally pleased with the quality of life in the county. And then we talked about, and they provided some of the areas that they're dissatisfied, lack of transportation, business spaces, that's your land and commercial spaces, transportation, skilled workforce, childcare, and housing. So the top three areas for business leaders with 10 and more employees are those three concerns: skilled workforce, childcare, and housing. So the responses varied depending on the size of the organizations, right? Next slide, please. So when asked about challenges and obstacles, what was shared by the respondents, so the concerns are still houselessness, crime, roads, land availability, taxes, tolling, rising costs. Other recommendations for improvements, maybe perhaps our website navigation could be a little bit easier, speed up our permitting processes, improve business communications, less regulations, more incentives for business growth, and then, of course, business advocacy. And some of the things we, of course, will be working on. So one of the last challenges noted was tolling, of course. And the major concern is still tolling. 81% of the respondents indicated an extreme to moderate concern over the cost that tolling is going to have on their businesses. So what the survey results tell us, and they confirm that the areas that you're already focusing on are the areas that they are concerned with most, right? Their priorities. So although there's still room for improvement, overall the county's doing a good job, right? County teams are. So that's my summation of some of the survey data. But what I'd like to do next is transition the conversation to the OED's strategic key priorities and goals, because the data that we've gleaned here is a helpful reminder of the things that we do well, and what it's going to do is also provide us our areas of focus to help solve challenges that the businesses are having to improve our business-friendly rating as we move forward. So next slide, please. So industry clients that are currently in our pipeline, our team is currently working with about 35 clients. And those clients are looking to expand their operations and hiring in Clackamas County. They represent various industries like manufacturing, food processing, professional services, construction, transportation, healthcare, and high tech. Some of the very industries that we've already identified as being self-sufficiency wage providers. So since January of 2020, over $61 million in private sector capital investment has been made in the county, with producing about 117 new jobs in those businesses that have expanded. So from the data that we've gleaned from the survey, the information that we're getting from the current clients that we're working with, we're confident that the goals that we've set so far are going to allow us to effectively focus energies and deliverables that positively impact our region, and thus making Clackamas County more business-friendly, increase self-sufficiency jobs, build economic prosperity, and improve livability for our citizens. The next slide. So bedrock of any strategic plan is your key priorities and your goals. So the key priorities that we have identified are the business retention, expansion, recruitment, and workforce development. So again, we're going to be supporting all traded sectors in the county. We're going to focus a lot of our energies on those that provide the self-sufficiency wages so that we can make things more livable. But we're also going to take a multi-pronged approach to the expansion and recruitment efforts for the Office of Economic Development. We're going to do this in three ways. We're going to identify facilities and lands that we can target industries for move-in ready sites. We're going to identify buildable land so we can recruit and for businesses to expand in the region. And we're going to identify subclusters and supply chain businesses to improve the growth and retention of our existing businesses. With that, one of the things that we're going to be doing is Echo Northwest is going to be performing a landscape analysis for our office. And they'll begin this mid-September when the Oregon State industry and employment data is next released for Q2. But they're also going to identify and research emerging subclusters for us that might be tied to, like, let's say, the chips, or other manufacturing processes, so that we can continue. So while they're in the midst of doing their analysis, our team is going to continue to engage in the way that we've been doing with businesses, taking the data that we have on hand to be able to target industries that we're aware of, to be able to backfill spaces that we have available for us. And then One last item I do want to mention is the Economic Development Commission. It's still under review, and we are not proposing any action at this time, but we will come back at a later date to discuss the findings and make any recommendations to the board when we have those. So, as I mentioned, this is a tight presentation, so we have room. So that concludes our presentation. And as you can see by the data, it supports our priorities and goals. And we welcome questions, comments, or recommendations that further align our goals in achieving your vision that you have for the county in making us a more business-friendly environment. And then as we develop the Office of Economic Development, whatever we come out of today will also help us to develop the Office of Economic Development's work plan. That's what I have for you.
Thank you, Laura.
Of course.
That was a very concise, huge information presentation, and I appreciate it. Your goals that you state, your 4 key goals, I think are very good. This board, can weigh in on those. I do have a couple of questions. I tend to wonder when we go out to businesses and we ask these questions, are we also sending them an expectation that we're going to try to solve the problem that they complain about? And do you ever feel that way, or do you ever get that sense in the answers? Because you said they had 13% dissatisfaction, and then by the time the survey was done, did you say it was down to 11%?
Yes.
Well, that's really remarkable right there. And that tells me that this is a learning process for them too, right? That, gee, we have this office now, and the county is trying to get back in the saddle on our economic development and going forward. Also, define for me the term traded sector.
So traded sector are generally those companies that are larger in their establishments, that are made up of industries that, like manufacturing.
So
Science and
exports out of
technology.
Clackamas County.
Yes.
That would be farming. It would be crops. It would be any of our manufacturing. We have quite a bit of that. So our traded sector in Clackamas County is quite large.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And our transportation hubs are so dependent on the traded sector being successful. I can't say that strong enough. And the survey respondents are right when they identify transportation as a problem. Also, the Eco Northwest study, did you say that will be finished, I didn't hear, September or December? I didn't hear.
No, we begin it here mid-September when the next data is released by the Oregon Employment Department with their jobs numbers. And so we've paused the start of that to be able to get those
Got it.
Q2 numbers so that we can have a little bit more effective reporting. Because a lot of the data, as you know, is historical, and it's
Yeah.
like looking in a rearview mirror. But it does tell us where the jobs are. And as we look at some of the job data that we're looking at right now, pre-COVID, we were at about 192,000 or thereabouts jobs in the county, and we're at about 170,000 now. So even over the last year, we've reduced by over 2,000 the jobs that we grew after COVID. We've actually lost some of those based on
Right.
current numbers. So we're excited to be able to see that Q2 data come out to really get our arms around the businesses that are still in the region, what industries they're made of, and then who's growing. And so we'll be able to have more data. So in the meantime, we're going to continue using that data to do the work we're doing.
That's fine, I just wanted to know
Yeah.
a timeline on that. You don't know when that'll be finished.
They said it could be as much as 8 months
Oh, okay.
to be
Well,
able to do it.
Don't be holding my breath.
Yeah.
My light board has lit up like a Christmas tree.
Okay,
All
great.
commissioners want to make a comment.
Love it.
And Commissioner Schrader, you're up first.
Yeah, well, thanks, Laura, for all your hard work, because this is what we needed to really reassess, because this essentially, colleagues, used to be a function every year of the Economic Development Department. And when it became quiescent because of COVID and things that, out of our control, this is now a really excellent starting point. in order to define what's here, what we need to help grow, and the land analysis. And somewhere back there, somewhere on some dusty shelf, there is a land analysis somewhere. I think it's out of date. Do you remember the year we did that, Paul? What, it
Yeah,
was
I think it was 2013.
2013.
What analysis? I'm sorry.
It was a land analysis
And,
where we looked at what was available
Yeah.
in the county. It's old information, but I don't know if it's a starting point to take a look at that. And also, I really appreciate the notion of looking at the traded sector and then looking, again, if we don't have those large acreages, what do we do to get those medium to larger size businesses that can be supply chain activities for the traded sector folks? And I guess how I explain it to my colleagues, the traded sector is the base of everything, really, because you go up and down the chain because it supports all the service businesses, it supports, supply chain issues where they're selling to one another. So it's like an ecosystem. It's like an ecosystem. And thanks for this. I'm excited to work on this. This is going to be great. And I think our reputation of working with businesses has been pretty solid since about 2003. And I think the way we responded when you were working at the when you were the chamber director of doing those recovery centers was probably one of the best ways to use ARPA dollars in terms of keeping folks going. Because I remember you and I talking during then, and there were people who were really just struggling at that time, and you worked really hard. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we're doing this. And I did jump the gun a little bit, colleagues. I already talked to Tom Ellis, my friend, and I said, well, what do you got out there in Happy Valley, Tom? Are you interested in getting some supply chain businesses out there? So we may want to speak about that. And then I was hoping Cindy at some point could give us a list of the economic development tools that we use as well. I don't think we have to talk about them now, but it'd be nice to say, where we give tax credits, where we do enterprise zones, where we do all these other pieces that government can have an impact with some of the tools we have. So a list of those tools for my colleagues would really be a good.
Okay, and we have 3 commissioners in the queue, and please write down your comments to finish up.
Okay.
Because I think we
Gotta go.
might want to say a lot. Thank you. Commissioner West, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. When I first took this position earlier this year, I remember feeling the same way that a lot of other Oregonians felt, that Oregon is building a reputation not to be business friendly. And then you see our main urban area, Portland, kind of a hollowed out shell of its former self. Businesses are boarded up. Conversation on the street anecdotally is, we're leaving for greener pastures. Some of those businesses didn't want to leave Oregon, but some came to Clackamas County because of our culture. And I think we do try to strive as leaders to establish a culture that is business friendly, that we understand the needs of somebody who signs the front of a paycheck, not just the back. And I think this is a good start. One thing I'm wondering if maybe I'm being too simplistic is, when you say on your key priorities, business recruitment, we just had REI move out here. We've had some other businesses that were in the Portland area move out here. We hear of them closing in Portland and leaving and going other places. When we say recruitment, are we to the point where we're like knocking on doors saying, hey, the water's real nice over here, jump on in Clackamas County, we'll take care of you. You'll have a safe place to do business. We will make it a clean, livable space and where you can thrive and grow. You can even move here with your family. Are we doing that type of outreach that's almost door to door, where we see low-hanging fruit in maybe Multnomah County, where we are getting rumblings that this restaurant or this manufacturer or this person that's in a traded sector or this group in a traded sector we're coaxing them and helping them? I think identifying lands and creating the environment is good too, but are we building relationships that are sometimes unusual for government to build with job creators and innovators?
The short answer, yes.
Okay.
So as we evolve and we establish the work plan based on these goals and priorities, then what part of that is going to be our marketing plan. And so currently, we're engaging with different partners. We're at the table. As we mentioned, we're really starting to engage deeply with our partnership at GPI. being part of the business council with them and being able to meet and talk to site selectors who are looking to move businesses in, and then other partners who are already sending us referrals for businesses that are looking to move into Clackamas County. So we're engaging in those conversations at a very deep level. And so, yes, again, short answer, yes.
Yeah,
We are going to be targeting and marketing those.
And I'm also concerned because I am still hearing tolling the threat, man. Some of these businesses they are really concerned job creators, and some of them are like, I'll survive, but my workforce, is it's really going to hurt my workforce and their livability and their ability and my ability to move goods and whatnot. So there are some big businesses where I've heard rumblings that they're just like fed up. They're just like, and I don't know if we have an ability to be somewhat of a balm to the some of that pain and rash that they're feeling with how businesses overall have been impacted with taxation, regulation, and some of that's at a state level. So I hope with that retention piece that we can really be hyper aggressive in retention and trying to listen and work with them so they feel they have a partnership within government, which I doubt most businesses do. And then I'm also curious because some of these fixes that we all know need to happen have to happen on a legislative level. Are you guys working with the rest of the staff in government affairs and whatnot to find those business pieces of legislation that we either need to oppose or support from a county level and being targeted in that approach? So I don't know if you guys have started that effort.
We actually have already been engaged in that effort, and we even just had a call this week with our team internally to talk about our legislative. So when they determine what your priorities are, and then as we watch the legislation roll out, we're going to be identifying key pieces that will have either a positive or negative effect on business, and then we're going to be able to add those to our list of priorities and hope that then we can bring it to you to add it to your list of priorities. So yes, the legislation, and that's part of the
Perfect.
other reason we're doing this.
And I think it's really important that all of Oregon and the region knows that Clackamas County, we're open for business, and we do things differently than much of this state. But here we honor, respect, and value you as vital partners, and we are open for business. So if anybody's watching this meeting, we're open for business in Clackamas County.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I want to step back a minute and ask a couple questions, and I have a comment. So what is the total employment in Clackamas County? Do we know?
Get that from
170.
The rate?
Yeah, I'd heard it on 170. I heard that earlier, 170.
So as of the Q1 23 reports, we have about 170,420 jobs currently, and that's down from by about 771 jobs just last quarter.
Right. I heard you say that.
So pre-COVID, we were at 192,845. See, I knew you were going to ask this question.
Right. That's
So, yeah.
where I'm going with this. And
Yeah.
and I just want to just clarify what you said earlier, because you did say that in your wrap-up. So of the traded sector you show, that totals about 46,000 employees, if I did my math right, just rough math, totaling all the trader sector jobs identified in the PowerPoint. So that delta is about 120,000 employees that are employed in other things not covered in the PowerPoint, whether it's traded sector or not traded sector. And I'm looking at the goal that the board set and the metric, if you want to call it that, and that being grow a vibrant economy, and then 75% of the businesses report a positive environment, essentially. So with that said, there's nothing in there that says traded sector. And so we have the 170,000, 192,000 rough number. Where are a majority of those employed? Because 75% of the businesses is a different number than where the employees are. So what is 75% of the businesses in Clackamas County?
I'll be honest, because so some of the data, and I don't have it all memorized, but when you look at the survey results, it does indicate some of the other sectors or industries that are predominant in Clackamas County, and that's like financial and some other industries, but also your service providers. So a lot of this is made up from that. I mean, we have And if you want me to, I can follow up with you after the fact with some of that state data that we currently have that shows you the breakdown of all the industries with the jobs, how many businesses there are in those industries, and how many jobs and what their salaries are. So I can share that with you if you want. I don't have that with me right here in front of me, but it is made up of some of those smallers. But when you look at the survey results as well, it does tell you, and I have to go back, I thought it was on page 5, but I might be mistaken. It does also tell you that a lot of we have about 73% of small business in this region that are independent with no FTEs. So we have a large portion of small businesses that make up some of that numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if I help draw the picture here, that there's that 75, what the businesses are, that demographic for Clackamas County, what that falls into, knowing the delta between the 46,000 that's traded sector employee-based versus the 192 out there. Obviously, there's a huge amount that is not part of the traded sector.
Yes.
And that said, and Commissioner West said, Clackamas County is a great place to do business. That's been my background. And also knowing that 75% of the businesses in the state, probably in the country, are small businesses, majority, right? We know that. So there's another number, not to be confused with the other 75%. My point is that what we learned at the EDC, what we learned in this exercise with that, in this department, and talking to businesses, is that we don't have very much land for opportunity. And so when I look at our neighbors to the west, Washington County, they did that project, that 124th project off of, is it Boone's Ferry? Tarleton Valley Sherwood Highway. I mean, my God, an explosion of businesses out there. Same thing goes on the north side along Highway 26. So when I look at the contrast between new businesses, economic development, my gosh, we're not even close.
No, we're not.
And we don't have the land to do it, right? We don't have the opportunity. It feels like we are, I won't say, like we're suppressed, right? And it's not that it's the county not wanting to go where we want to go, but it's the nature of either the transportation or the available land, industrial lands and so forth. Canby's doing a lot of good stuff, right? Wilsonville's done a lot of good stuff.
As well, they asked for an expansion.
Right. So, but obviously transportation, obviously land availability, and the labor pool is really important. But when it comes down to, if I look at the metric itself, and I talked to a lot of the businesses, I went and talked to one of the business owners the other day, last week, actually during recess, and I asked the question, how's everything going? He goes, right now, everything's fine, but we're just waiting for the first tweaker to come in the door to make our life miserable, which is a regular occurrence, right? And it's a storefront business. It's a large business, actually, a large storefront business. But, I just look at the employees that are in that industry, construction related, right? Where there's just a lot of activity and a lot of jobs, and that we've heard from businesses complaining, whether it's McLaughlin or whether it's 82nd Avenue, wherever it may be, about the problems with some of the people that having an episode of mental health breakdown or whatever it may be, or drug use or whatnot. That just doesn't paint a good picture for that sector. So what I would like to better understand is who those 75% of the businesses are, or the businesses are in Clackamas County. And so when we talk about trying to improve the satisfaction for 75% of those businesses, we're looking at the whole spectrum, not just the traded sector. I think traded sector is important, but the other thing I heard from the traded sector folks is no room to grow. No room to grow, which is back to the land use. So I'm covering two different areas, two different arenas, traded and not traded, but it's going to be hard, really. It looks like the only thing we have any control over as a commission or as a county is maybe making life better on the street for the existing businesses, because we certainly can't create new land, new businesses, new opportunities, like perhaps maybe the Sunrise Corridor. That's one of our goals. The Sunrise Corridor opens up a lot of opportunity. So I see that. So I see that there, and we're trying to do that. But we're a ways away from seeing that project to fruition.
You've got to have a plan that supports who you are and grows where you're not.
Right.
And I think that's the effort that we have. Yes, we are not Washington County. And I think that's the value of having Laura's office so close to the work that we're doing in DTD. We're dealing with those issues. Laura and her team are a part of our discussions when we talk about I-205. They're part of our discussions when we talk about Sunrise. They're part of the dialogue when we talk to our planning department about land availability and what we do. And that's why you have this culmination of expertise coming together to try to achieve that. You know the numbers. I mean, Washington County gets $40 million more annually than we do just because of their funding sources that we can't get. And we try, and we battle, and we fight, and we do that at the local level. We do it at the state level, with the Sunrise. You mentioned can't be doing great work. Malala doing great work. Estacade is blowing up.
Yep.
Happy Valley is being very proactive. I mean, and that's, keep in mind, a lot of that availability discussion is really a partnership with our cities. And how does the good work of this office kind of coordinate with those cities to facilitate expansion and growth? And then how do we try to find the infrastructure to support it as well? So I don't disagree with anything you said. I mean, we are a diverse, and we have a lot of small businesses as we try to support them. And then we also have these larger businesses, which is what we'd like to secure with available lands. So.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Is that it, Paul?
Yep.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning, Laura Edmonds. Good morning, Dan Johnson. My comment has to do with land availability also. Land availability is critical. It's a critical element in attracting new industry. That's what we should be focused on, industry, production, not retail. The Columbia Corridor Construction Group, which I met with last fall, they concentrate on construction between the Willamette River to Troutdale and north of Interstate 84 to the Columbia River, that industrial area there. Last fall, they reported that essentially all larger tracts of land for industrial development have been built, except just for a few that were extremely expensive to improve in order to be able to build on. I think one 20-acre parcel needed 600,000 cubic yards of fill to get it, buildable. Okay, so they're looking at Clackamas County, but they find nothing to satisfy their needs. So on your strategic priorities slide, item number 3, ID buildable lands. Well, haven't we've already identified what is buildable in Clackamas County now. Isn't the problem our need to expand those lands, and isn't the loggerhead and the roadblock the state legislature, state land laws, and Metro? And so, again, we get back to, we have this great idea, but now we get back to the same old roadblock that we've been suffering from, which has caused a lot of our land use issues, okay? The other thing on the same slide, your strategic priority slide, item number 8, provide services, tools, incentives that attract business to the county. Affordable land, reduced regulations, reasonable taxation, and reasonable permitting times and processes are the things I hear from business that they're most concerned about. You don't really need to give them much else to attract them. In other words, tools, incentives that might be development, tax reduction for a period of time. Those kind of tools are nice, but they cost us money. But the items that I just mentioned, those 4 items, is what business is really looking for. Of course, in addition to affordable housing for their workforce, right? Good schools, good K through 12 schools. So again, I mention these things. I don't need an answer. I just want you to think about the same loggerheads that we've been dealing with for decades are reflected in your slide. Thank you.
If I could give you a quick answer. I'm not going to mention organizational names, I'm not going to mention any of that, but one thing that I'll talk to you about is the fact that we continue to see studies around the region that discuss the fact that there is insufficient land supply to support the economic health of the region. And if that is the case, your methodology is broken. That is what it comes down to. And the discussion that we have is, how to activate those. You're right. We've done a lot of development with I've done a lot of projects, expansions, hospitals expansions, et cetera. And with those projects, it comes down to they need to know time and dollars are key, and the ability to count on those things. And then we can control those. That's the work that we do through our permitting program. We also have incentive programs. You talk about the fact that they aren't great, but you know what? They keep us equal with the region, because they're like enterprise zones are everywhere throughout the region. And you talked about the desire to have a list of all the incentive programs.
Yeah,
There aren't a lot of tools out there. I'm going to be honest with you. There aren't a lot of tools that are readily available, and I think as a part of the development of this plan, it's looking to see what are other tools that we can provide that maybe hit on a couple of the things that you raised. For example, we used to have kind of an ombudsman service for development when they came in, if they had a certain size or scope or scale. In fact, I filled that role for businesses in the past. I work here at Clackamas County and prioritizing that work, and they were a single point of contact, and they were coordinating permitting and things of that nature. But there are tools that we can discuss that I think will be developed as a part of this plan that will at least provide you and our Office of Economic Development staff the tools they need to go out and engage with businesses on who Clackamas County is, what do we provide, that we are open for business, and that we are here to help you succeed. And those are all great things. So,
Good, thank you, Dan.
thank you.
Well said, Commissioner Shaw. I think all of us agree with what you said, as well as Commissioner Savas on the land use. Ironically, my entire commute this morning in the car, I was on a phone with a gentleman talking about the land use situation and what Clackamas County can do to provide more land. And it may be antithetical to what some advice we've been getting in a different department, Gary, and that's the rub, okay? Every single department needs to be on board with these goals to move forward. And not all departments in the county are on board with us finding and developing more land. And I think that's bears for a private conversation. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but it's a real problem. Sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot because we don't think that's going to work, or we don't know it's going to work until we try it. And it's going to be very uncomfortable. Commissioners, you say you want more land? Let me tell you what's involved in that.
Oh, I know.
It's going to be a fight for our own sovereignty to develop this program. So there's an ironic statistic to me. You said half of it today. We've lost 2,000 jobs since the pre-pandemic to now, yet in the last year, we have gained over 9,000 population that has moved in the county from our partner to the north, Multnomah County and Portland. So we've gained 9,000 population. They have lost over $1 million of taxable income that has come to Clackamas County. So what are those people doing and where are they living? And that is rhetorical. Obviously, they found a place to buy, or they rented. They decided they just needed to get out of the county and come and live here. They must be working some other place since we still have a deficit of jobs, but maybe not, and that's an assumption that probably may not hold true. But maybe they're commuting to elsewhere, but they have decided they wanted to come to Clackamas County, and I have a feeling if you were to look at that particular statistic, you would see that we are gaining population from Multnomah County and Portland for 2 years in a row now. That's just a very interesting statistic to me to take a look at that. You've identified transportation as a problem, workforce, housing, and land. That's right on. Those were the survey results that employers said are troublesome. And yeah, I talk to a lot of businesses as well, and they say those things. They say those things. And when Commissioner Shaw mentioned the incentives, he's right on in the incentives. We're not going to be able to give huge tax breaks for X industry to come in. We're not going to give millions of dollars of tax breaks for a new siding facility, probably, unless there's something that I don't know, unless we have a pot of money coming in that I don't know about. But we can try to do what we can here. And it's interesting. You'll notice in our newscom, I believe today, the governor's task force on housing. And their recommendation was that to expand the urban growth boundary with a temporary pause on the horrific, burdensome, awful process it is for local cities to expand their urban growth boundary. That is essential to our success. Because in Clackamas County, we have 16 cities, and that's where our population centers mainly are. And if somehow we can help in that, and I had this conversation in February with the governor, because she wanted, was it 36,000 new housing units inside the urban growth boundary every year. And I says, Governor, that's not sustainable. And I was at a speech with Metro, and Metro disagreed with me, and I disagreed with Metro. It's not possible. Mainly in Clackamas County, just because of the services and all the problems that, for instance, Commissioner Savas has mentioned, the livability and the parking and the streets and all that. And so we've all said these things, but I think that is an important component going forward. That particular recommendation from this committee is a game changer. Is a game changer because the expansion of the urban growth boundary for both Malala and the city of Canby came to ask us for will take years and years and years and is hugely expensive to do. So if somehow the governor through the Oregon legislature, maybe in the short session, maybe she's teeing this up for the short session, we need to watch that and give support to that effort as well. That's really all I have. Commissioner Schrader, do you have some closing remarks?
Yeah, I just want to remind people that we're the county, and Laura, you know this, and Dan, you knew this because you were here back in 2003, and when we first started this work, and basically it was me running around just going to businesses saying, this is the truth, hi, I'm Commissioner Schrader, and they go, who are you and why do I care? Okay, and then I met Barry Hendricks from OECO. And Barry was intrigued. He goes, what's an entomologist running around here for you? What? The government's never come to us. But through asking those questions, and nobody knew what I was doing. I was essentially under the radar screen because we kept talking about jobs. And I thought, what does that mean? I'm a biologist, okay? So out of that, making those connections with Barry, they saw Endless Diasis and Chandra Brown. That was, now it's Vigor, but it used to be Oregon Iron Works. And all of these larger folks came together. We catalyzed that conversation where we developed in this county probably one of the biggest and most successful manufacturing clustered sectors in the defense industry, which was absolutely, people were like, we have a defense industry? And I said, yeah. So, I worry sometimes that we get a little negative. We don't have land, we don't have this, we don't have that. We do, okay? We've got land in Happy Valley, we've got land in Malala, we've got land in Canby. We need to start it's just me talking, guys, off the top of my head. We need to start looking at those nodes for their communities with the land that's available and start improving their infrastructure. And the big push is for the Sunrise because Happy Valley is ready for this. Okay, and it doesn't have to be a 60 or 100 acre site. It can be a smaller site for the fee. I mean, supply chain industries are just as important as the huge traded sector. And remember, Paul, that small businesses depend on their success by the success of the traded sector in the biosystem or system that we have of how economics works. And we were the ones that developed healthcare, and we were the ones that saw manufacturing was big, and we were the ones that said, wow, professional services out there in outside of Lake Oswego and around the county. So I would say, yeah, there's a land thing, but that's not going to stop me. I think that we can find it. I think we can do it. It doesn't have to be the 100-acre sites, but I think we need to be working more closely with our smaller communities and seeing what they have and how we can grow that to be the supply chain for this region. I refuse to be stopped by all this other stuff. I'm not, no. It's not going to happen. And, we can talk about the fact that we don't have flat land. Well, I'm still annoyed by the fact we had employment land out in the Happy Valley area. There's a school on it now and a ball field. We also have to start thinking about when we do have a resource, what do we do with it? All that land that was along 212, where Vern Duncan, we needed a school, Happy Valley. That was all supposed to be employment land, and it got diverted. So the other thing you have to be careful of is when you see something like that, be clear that that's going to remain employment land and don't start using it
Right.
for other purposes. And for example, Canby, great employment land. But then they put a Wilco Farmers. Is that economic development? Yeah, but is it the manufacturing base that we need? It's retail. It's different than what you really need for the core of the businesses that do the manufacturing and do the work. So I'm sorry to wax eloquent, but I've been doing this since 2003, and it's very near and dear to my heart. And I am excited that we are revitalizing this, and I do think we should use some tools, and one of the reasons I keep going to the national level, I'll get you all the best practices I've been getting from the CEWD, and also we need to be, you are also really working with GPI, and we need to start accessing money from the economic development, from the Department of Commerce. For God's sakes, we're letting money sit on the table that we could be accessing for this county, I believe, and plus the USDA. The two groups that do economic development, Department of Commerce and the USDA. And I have also felt that some of our smaller communities, that we haven't been tracking that the way we should. So I think there's money out there, and I think we can do this, so.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
guys.
Commissioner Schrader. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, well, there's one thing we really can't argue, and that's really what's taking place on the ground in the region. There's a study that was done here just not too long ago. I don't know if Portland did it, or Multnomah County, or the Portland Business Alliance did, but basically the results were on the news here just a couple weeks ago, and really talk about the exodus of businesses leaving Multnomah County.
Oh,
And by the way, where are they going, right? Where are they migrating to?
coming here.
And so there's a fact on the ground. Number one, you have the reasons they left, it's revealed in this study, and also where they're going. So Clark County has been the successor, frankly, of that migration, more than anyone else. And what do they have? They're building roads, they have land available, they have all those things. So, and that's why a lot of those businesses left. Actually, a lot of businesses left Oregon and went across the river to the north, whether they went to Seattle area or whether they went to Clark County. It's not that important, but again, why they left and where they went. So those are some facts we can look at the ground and learn something from. I call it the other side of the equation. It's not what we can do, but we need to recognize where is the action taking place and why, and those incentives or those reasons or rationales that businesses are making those decisions is something that we need to recognize and not ignore. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We love the presentation. We love the work that's being done. Go forth, be prosperous, and conquer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time today.
You bet. Gary, what's next?
The next session is scheduled for 10 minutes, but the staff is here. Would you like to move forward?
Commissioners, do you want to continue, or do we want to wait until 11?
Let's keep on driving.
We're going to keep going and going. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Chair, would you please convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Housing Authority of Clackamas County.
Joining you online is Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra. We'll wait just a moment, please, for Ann. All right. Ann, welcome. Thank you, Ann, for being here. This is Regional Affordable Housing Bond Funding Allocation. Staff from the Housing Authority, which is part of Health, Housing, Human Services, will present. Devin Ellen is the Housing Development Director. She's going to kick it off. Rod Cook will be on his way, but Devin, I'd like you to go ahead, please. So come on forward.
Look at that.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm pleased to bring forward 4 new housing bond projects that are requesting your consideration and concept endorsement. As Housing Authority staff considered new projects, we prioritize projects that provide affordable housing in high-opportunity locations. So this includes sites that have good access to transit, jobs, quality schools, commercial services, parks, and open spaces. And I think each of these projects meets that goal. These 4 projects represent a total of 466 units. With the addition of these units to our housing bond pipeline, Clackamas County will exceed its unit production goal of 812 units by 158 units, bringing its total bond production goal to 970 units, with 85% of our total bond allocation funds utilized. With the addition of these 4 projects proposed in the pipeline, Clackamas County's bond funds will leverage and bring over $366 million in outside investment into Clackamas County. These funds support projects located in places like Lake Oswego and Happy Valley that provide future residents with an opportunity to prosper and create construction jobs that pay living wages. So with the addition of these projects, Clackamas County will have at least one housing bond project underway in every city identified in the local implementation strategy, with the exception of West Lynn. And staff is working with the city of West Lynn on putting together a project there as well. So we're really excited, hope to have some information about that one soon. So as detailed in your packets, we're bringing forward the 275-unit Hillside Park project in Milwaukee, the 55-unit Lake Grove project in Lake Oswego, the 121-unit Wilsonville Transit-Oriented Develop project in Wilsonville, and a 15-unit affordable home ownership project in Milwaukee. So a lot of information is detailed in your packets. I wanted to have this policy session so I could answer any questions. There are several project sponsors in the audience today that will be able to answer possibly any questions that I can't. So I don't know how you want me to move forward. I could give a
We will ask some questions.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
for coming forward. In addition to your wonderful presentation, I asked you and Rod for some information, and you provided on this sheet, Commissioners. You can turn your attention to that because you gave us the total investment of the Metro Bond, but I wanted to know what the total investment of all housing units provided in the Metro Bond. You were able to do that. And then the body of the email is also on this sheet, Commissioners. So with the 9 projects that so far have been supported by the Metro Bond, the total housing investment, according to my math, I just added up quickly this morning, was $476.3 million and over 1,000 units just with the bond. Comes to an average price per unit of $463,000. That's gone up, obviously, because of inflation. But thank you, and I wanted this to be just, Commissioners, for your use as you talk to people. It's a quick cheat sheet for us, and I can forward you the email. Frankly, I had trouble printing it because of but Caroline did it for us if you need more copies. So I thought this was really good information, Devin, that you did for us. Yesterday, Mayor Joe Buck from Lake Oswego called the office, and he just wanted to say, I am so thankful for what Clackamas County is doing for us, and this has been a long-time project for them in Lake Oswego. And they have the hurdles of very expensive real estate, and we know why, because it's Lake Oswego. But they also have a great need for affordable housing and supported housing. And so we were able to get this one project off, and he cannot say how much of a long road this was to hoe to get to this point. And I also offered that keep identifying projects, because we have more monies coming in on the SHS dollars that we could possibly lend support, not only to Lake Oswego, but some of the other areas that don't have any, like you mentioned, West Lynn. Wilsonville's on this list. We've had a couple of offers to Wilsonville that didn't quite fit what they wanted to do, but fortunately we're able to land on this one. At least there's one here. And it's just a very good project to do. Joe Buck, also wanted us to know that the community is very supportive of this going forward, and they've done a lot of hard work on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Commissioner West, you're up.
Yeah, Joe Buck, he might have called all of us. I talked to him yesterday on the phone also, and got a little more familiar just from, and have his perspective as the mayor of Lake Oswego on this specific property. I love the fact that it's going to cater to families. It's in a wonderful location, and it was all hands on deck to get so many units provided in a space where people can have dignity within their housing and families can stay together. I think it really helped fill a gap and a need, and I'm really proud of Lake Oswego and Joe Buck's leadership on this issue for this property. This is a little bit near and dear to my heart because one of these properties I worked hard on as a city councilor of Wilsonville. Had a lot of influence on where this property is going by the West Transit Center close to Villebois, which is the largest neighborhood within Wilsonville. It's very close to services, it's close to transit, it's close to the freeway. So those that may have some transportation issues or needs can still have mobility, which was a main focus of the Wilsonville City Council. The last vote I took as a Wilsonville City Councilor was awarding Palindrome Properties Group this project. And a lot of mindful work went into the Wilsonville project, and I look forward to having some new neighbors. And this is a fantastic project, and Wilsonville does stand behind it. And I'm really proud of just the collaborative work. These are just the two properties out of all these properties that I think are fantastic, that stand out to me specifically, that help address the affordable housing issue. So, but special kudos to Lake Oswego and the city of Wilsonville and for being great partners in this effort.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning, Devin Ellen and Rod Cook. I'm looking at the pre-development projects. Hillsdale Park, Lake Grove, Wilsonville TOD, and the short stack Milwaukee. Now, I see that the total development cost for those 4 projects per unit averages right around $490,000 per unit. Now, does that figure include interest, or is that the turnkey construction development cost of the unit?
That's all in, including interest costs.
That includes the interest. Whew. Okay. Okay, so that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about Lake Grove because that was when Jill Smith was here, Rod, and I remember going out there with her, and at the time, Teresa Koloff was one of the city councilors at the time, and we looked at the site, and we said, and we brought the housing authority out to say, hey, Lake Oswego needs affordable housing, and this would be a great site, because they had used it as a staging area for the work that they were doing on Boones Ferry Road. And at the time, I was thinking, wow, I hope we can pull this off, and I want to thank the housing authority. We planted that seed back then. You guys carried the ball on it, and now Lake Oswego is on its way, I think, as a community that is perceived as a well-to-do community. They also have issues with homelessness and actually real housing affordability. So I'm pleased that planting that seed pushed that particular project forward, and I really am grateful that my colleagues were willing to put, I think it was $600,000 towards it, or $800,000 with ARPA dollars, which was a huge boost. They were, I remember Habitat for Humanity was ecstatic. And I also had a question here with the short stack Milwaukee. Now, Proud Ground actually works with home ownership.
Correct.
So is this going to be a project that all of it is going to increase home ownership for people? Or part of it? Or
That's correct, yeah. It'll be our first Metro Bonds sponsored project that supports a home ownership model. So yeah, we're really excited about that. It's 15 units. The underlying land will be held in the land trust to preserve the affordability, and it'll be for sale for folks at the 80% of area median income.
And I think we have other developments of this kind in the county by Milwaukee, am I correct? If I remember, Northwest it was when
There's
Martha
a handful of land
was here.
trust projects in Clackamas County, but my understanding is there hasn't been any that have closed recently.
Okay.
And then certainly not that have used the regional bond funds.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to go, because what it does is build wealth with people and moves them up the prosperity ladder. It gives them a chance at home ownership. They're able to get equity, and then they're able to continue to owning a home I think is a pathway to prosperity. So would love to see some more of those kinds of opportunities in this county, and I hope we do more work with Proud Ground. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I appreciate the work we're doing and the progress we're making with the Metro Housing Bond dollars, and I know that this does not include all the other projects we did, which are part of that goal we had of 1,500 units, right, which have exceeded that, I believe, or in the pipeline, going to exceed that. So appreciate all the good work. I do want to just thank Commissioner Scholl for asking the question about the interest, and Devin, for those that are watching, listening, or in the future that watch this or listen to this, I think a lot of us struggle with the 400, whatever the number is, right?
463,000 per unit.
Yeah, right. And so it's the clarification I want to make, and again, I want to thank Commissioner Scholl for asking the question, as I've shared this with everyone I know, is that, by the way, that's actually not only the financing cost, but really the operating cost for 30 years. It's their entire pro forma for a 30-year project, right, divided by the units. So that's because of the tax credit and the need to do that public. So it's just a weird structure. And I say the only way to compare it in real world is if you bought your own home and you paid $500,000 for your home, and then you took all your mortgage payments, all your insurance payments, all the upkeep, and you added that all together and you divided that by how many bedrooms, you would get a similar number. So I just wanted to point that out, that that's a mistaken comparison to try to compare, the cost per door of a private sector, non-public funded property versus what we do here. So just wanted to just amplify that. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, could you please clarify something for me? On these projects, are any of the units in time available for sale to the tenants?
Only the home ownership projects, the 15 units. The rest are rental.
The home ownership project. Okay, so let's say I meet the income requirements for the home ownership project, and I purchase one of the units. I'm getting a subsidy, if you will, okay? That subsidy makes it possible for me with my income to purchase my own home. And like Commissioner Schrader says, get a start on building family wealth. Is there a limitation or a restriction on how soon I can sell that property to turn a profit? In other words, in Singapore, what they did, they had a similar program, but once you purchased it, you had to live there for 5 years, and then there was a maximum % increase on the value of the property after that 5 years if you go to sell it. And they did that in order to reduce spikes in the increase in the price of homes. Is that something that you're looking at?
Yeah, it's a similar model. I don't know the number of years that you need to wait. I believe it's 2, but I can get back to you with more
Is
specifics.
that a federal program?
No, it's Proud Grounds program.
Okay.
So they set those limitations. And
Okay.
the restrictive covenant, since this is a new model that Metro is working on to use their bond funds, we're still working out the details of what that covenant's going to look like in order to ensure that it's remains affordable to households 80% AMI and below for at least 30 years. So I'll come back to you with more
Okay.
details about it, but there is some limitations
Okay,
on.
because I have 2 constituents that want to do a project just like that. Okay? If you could work with me on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Have any of these 15 units sold yet?
No,
Do you have a
they,
waiting list?
probably, I'm sure Proud Ground has a large waiting list, but they haven't been developed yet, so they're.
I would think they would just go in a snap.
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner West?
I wanted to just, I was hoping Commissioner Savas, you would break that down, because I remember one of our whiteboard sessions late at night here alone in the office, you broke that down for me because I had questions about that. That's a super important point when when we want to compare apples to apples or oranges to oranges. You naturally will see per cost that per unit for like a one particular, oh holy God, why did it cost that much? But there is a lot more to that formula, and so it's important to state that so we have clarity, and that we can support good projects when they come about like this. So thank you for doing that. I was sitting here like, I wonder if that light's going to go on for Commissioner Savas, because I know he's got a little explanation for us, and so it's a good one. Thank you. That's all I got.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it now that I think about it. If you could take maybe all these new projects or coming online here and add that to the total list of all the projects we built that are part of that $1,500 unit goal. And just, so I think it might be better for us to just call it boast, or at least inform people what we are doing. That way people don't think we're not doing anything. But if we get all of it, that is just not the Metro Housing Bond stuff, the total inventory or growth.
Sure, the
that'd be
performance
fantastic.
Clackamas goal. Yeah, definitely. Some of these were, kind of included, I think, Hillside Park, but we'll definitely add the new ones, and I can send that out.
Right,
Anything else?
that's it.
Commissioners, we can take some action today. There is a recommendation prepared for us on page 6, and I will accept a motion.
I move we approve the request to provide the Housing Authority board endorsement to the 4 projects seeking preliminary commitments.
Her mic's on.
Martha, your microphone is off. You're going to have to repeat the motion.
I'll repeat that. I move to approve the request to provide Housing Authority board endorsement to the 4 projects seeking preliminary commitments of regional affordable housing bond funds.
I'll accept a second from Ann, who's online.
I second that motion.
Thank you very much. A motion has been made by Commissioner Schrader to approve the Housing Authority, the 4 projects in the materials. It has been seconded by Ann Leenstra. Any further discussion? Commissioner Savas, Scholl.
If these projects are approved, where does that put us on the ensure safe, healthy, and secure communities on our county plan in terms of numbers?
I think that's
Above?
what Commissioner
Right?
Savas
Yeah.
asked for.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we're good?
Good point. I think he asked for that, and that's probably needs to be updated.
I can update that and
Yeah,
and circulate it.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
good. The number's good.
Yeah, the numbers.
It's very good, thank you.
That's good.
Any further discussion? See none. Tony, would you please take the poll?
Commissioner West,
Yes.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Leenstra,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Ann Leenstra, for participating. Thank you, staff, for bringing these really good projects forward. We appreciate your work on all this. Devin, thank you for providing this additional information for me, for the board, and very good. Gary, what's next?
That is the last morning session for the morning.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Gary. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.